So in this one, we've got Helen, Ewan, Carrie, Melanie and Daniel. So we've got everybody excluding Helen, as far as I'm aware, is from the physiotherapy profession. And of course, Carrie, who I mentioned earlier, it's great to now have her on the stage. Has been key in sort of putting this program together. So thank you a lot. So I'll hand over to you guys if you're happy to get going. This is a half-an-hour session, followed by a quick video, and then we will be having the exhibition time and a bit of lunch break. So I'll hand over to you guys. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, George. Hi, good morning, everybody. We are live on the AHP live stage at Virtual Health Careers live event this morning. My name is Carrie Biddle. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a very proud speech and language therapist on our panel. I am joined by a host of brilliant physiotherapists who are making up our AHP digital panel this morning. And our plan is to share with you some general kind of career advice, the routes people have taken, the exploration you might want to think about yourself in a career as an AHP, or as a career development next step for you, and how their experiences as clinical healthcare professionals have now started to move into a different space where they're looking at technology and digital healthcare. So without further ado, I'm going to do a quick round robin of introductions. So we will start with you, Mel, please. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much, Carrie, and to the Virtual Healthcare Conference team for this invitation. I'm a physio, proudly so, and have worked in the NHS for 25 years. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I can tell you a little bit more about my journey.
Yeah, go on, share a little bit of your journey with us. That'd be wonderful.
Okay, so I actually first heard about the profession of physiotherapy when I was volunteering for my Duke of Edinburgh Award when I was about 15. And I was helping out at a local special needs education centre for children and with physical disabilities. And I was in the music therapy room, and I was in the physio room, and I was in the hydrotherapy pool. And that was it for me. From that moment onwards, I knew I really wanted to be a physio. And I think I knew that because it was just such a varied experience for me. And as it will come out in our discussions, I never really liked to do anything the same for too long. So for me, it was a really the variety of physiotherapy that really brought me in. And I'm going to hold back on telling you a little bit more about the digital thing, but it's great to be here and to share my story as a proud physio and a digital physio.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mel. I'll come across to Dan next. It's a bit like Celebrity Squares, this. So we're coming across to Dan.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Carrie. So my name is Dan Ashman, and I'm the AHP Practice Facilitator Lead for Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. So I've worked my career in the NHS as a MSK physio for most of it, so musculoskeletal physio, either clinically or as a team lead. And while working clinically, I had a chance to complete my postgraduate diploma, and was lucky enough to be offered the opportunity to lecture as guest lecturer on some of the undergraduate programs, and that's really where I developed my interest in supporting students in the education of students in practice as well. And back in 2019, I was lucky enough to get the post of AHP Practice Facilitator for Somerset Foundation Trust. And one of the big elements of that role is supporting our students and our clinical teams in practice, but also our newly qualified staff as well. So on their preceptorship journey as they transition from student to independent practitioner. And over the last 18 months as everything's changed for a lot of us, how we work, and it's had an impact on placements as well. I've been working quite closely looking at placement expansion, but also how we can use technology, digital simulation in enhancing our learning opportunities for our placement areas.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. It's great to have you here this morning with us. Helen, we'll come down to you next.
Thanks, Carrie. Hello, everyone. I'm Helen Parrot, and a physiotherapist, a respiratory physiotherapist by background. And I've got almost 20 years experience behind me in the NHS in a sort of combination of clinical, leadership and digital roles. Most of my career I spent extending my scope of practice in the care of adults with cystic fibrosis. And it was kind of there really that I accidentally fell down a digital pathway for my career, and that was simply because I was trying to solve a problem and digital just happened to be the solution. And I was looking for remote monitoring tools for people with cystic fibrosis to monitor their lung function from home, and that took me down a digital path. And actually now since January 2020, I'm working for a digital therapeutics company as their clinical lead, and sort of supporting them from a clinical perspective.
Lovely. I like the idea. You're our Alice in Wonderland that fell down the rabbit hole into a digital world. It's wonderful, wonderful pictures, Helen. Thank you. And Ewan, we'll come to you.
Morning, everyone. My name's Ewan. I am a very proud digital physiotherapist. My first experience of physio was as a rugby player, as a young rugby player. And that's what I thought I wanted to do until I started to do it. I did want to be the physio with the Scottish rugby team, go on the British and Irish Lions tour, until I started doing it. I realised it wasn't actually that interesting for me. It wasn't my niche in physiotherapy. So I did lots of physio jobs, went around the houses, so it were, and then just as Helen did, fell into the digital world accidentally. That was just over 10 years ago now, and I love it more and more every day. I'm more passionate about it, more enthusiastic about it than I was yesterday. So I found my niche. It took me a little while, but I found it and I absolutely love it.
Brilliant. And I think that's something that's really important, is that there is so much range. I mean, even within your clinical specialities that you started in, within a base profession of physiotherapy, you've all come at it from different places. So like you say, finding your tribe, finding your strengths, following your interests and curiosity is really important. So Mel, I'm going to come back to you then. We've seen a massive transformation and the foot to the floor with digital healthcare over the last 12 months through the pandemic. So what are the best bits about your job, and what is your team? If you're not in a clinical team as such now that you might be as a frontline physio, what does your team membership look like?
Yeah, so as I alluded to, I joined the NHS 25 years ago to make a difference, and my background was for almost all of those years was in musculoskeletal and rheumatology care. And as you mentioned, I've recently stepped away, a few paces back really from the front line. And my new role is as a senior delivery manager at NHSX, which is the digital transformation directorate of the whole of the NHS. So now my focus on what really matters to patients is on that national scale. And so my team is quite different to the one I sort of grew up with as a physiotherapist working in a musculoskeletal outpatient department. I now work with other clinical colleagues, but I work with experts in policy, in finance, in service design, and in delivery, and also what I would describe as the visionaries, those that see what digital can really do for the whole of the NHS. And my part of that is, it feels small but not insignificant. And so what I'm now doing is using tried and tested digital solutions to help solve the real world problems that we see across musculoskeletal health, both from primary and prevention health, primary care, all the way through that journey through a hospital and out the other side for rehabilitation. And so my team is really multi-professional rather than being uni-professional. And I absolutely love working with people that think differently, and we build on each other's ideas. I suppose the best bits of my job, being 25 years into a career that I think is going to last another 25, is to really use those skills and that mileage that I've accrued as being a clinician, and to always advocate for patients. Even though I'm not on the front line, I'm always thinking and putting myself, I hope, in the shoes of patients and saying, what's their experience of care? What really matters here? So when we talk about digital, we're using digital as a mindset, a way of thinking to solve those problems. And the best bits are no 2 days are the same. And like Ewan, I love it more each day because I'm solving problems, which are, I think, the core skills of a physiotherapy professional. So I'll pause there because I'm desperate to hear from my colleagues.
Thank you, Mel. I think that's really important. And I think you make a really valuable point around when you move into different roles or you step back or a step aside from the front line, you don't lose sight of your patients or your service users and the people you are aiming to help. At the end of the day, they are still absolutely there in your focus, even though you might be coming at it from a slightly different position in how you're approaching your care and your support that you give them. Thank you. Okay, so Dan, I'm going to come to you. You mentioned in your introduction about obviously working in practice education and simulation. So can you tell us what simulation means in the context that you described, and how do you feel that the technology that we have now has transformed or is enabling us to transform the way we provide education and training in practice?
Thank you. So simulation is almost an artificially constructed environment where we can represent realistic scenarios. And as we say that, our first thoughts tend to jump towards role play, which obviously does play an element of simulation, but it's broader than that. So it includes the video sessions, it includes virtual reality, mannequins, and 360-degree camera imagery. So essentially it's a way for us to practice and develop skills in a safe and protected environment where we can learn from our errors and our successes in that way. So we're using simulation as a way of almost guaranteeing exposure to certain scenarios, certain incidents to help our learning and develop our learning within that within our clinical placements and within our student placements. So when we know, for example, that a patient can fall at any stage, is that patient going to fall while you're on placement with us? We don't know. But if we can prepare us for that in a simulation session, the learning we take from that, hopefully, if that happens again in future, we can learn how to manage that in a better way so that the processes are in place for the development of those skills as we manage that in that situation in front of us. But we're also using it as a way to support our students to achieve competencies while on placement as well. So as our clinical workload has changed significantly over the way we're delivering care has changed, we may be looking at a competency around escalating care. And actually, if we don't have our patient within that 4-week, 6-week, 8-week placement that needs escalating, how do we achieve that competency? So luckily, I work with a fantastic sim team within the trust, and they're very engaged in supporting our learners and our multidisciplinary learning. So we're looking at how we can broaden that to include the whole patient pathway in that. So we may start with a patient out in the community or an actor playing that patient in the community or one of our outpatient settings. And then our students in that setting identify we need to get this patient to A&E. So then we move into the next stage where our student nurses are assessing that patient in A&E. They may feel we need to take some x-rays, so we call in our radiography colleagues. And at that stage, we switch over to one of our mannequins, which we can take an x-ray of and get clear images of the bones underneath to help make that clinical judgment. Then we switch back to the actor, refer out into physio or OT and get that patient home safe. So not only are we escalating the care, we're understanding that whole patient journey and how we work as an MDT together. But throughout that whole journey, we can be controlling the observations of that patient. So the blood pressure, the heart rate, the saturations, we can be controlling that with an app to react to what's happening in that situation. So almost in real time, how we expect that to change. Now, obviously, that's quite a high intensity type of simulation. And again, we can do them in different ways. So using the 360-degree cameras, we can set up an introduction to the clinical environment. So looking at a theatre or a ward environment, we can set up the image. And so as you can go into that online, look around the room, you can open the drawers, you can look in the cupboards to understand where things are kept. So when you come into that in that first instance, you have that familiarity because you've been there before virtually. So it helps that transition in. But we've also been using that to help develop some of those clinical skills. Because again, over the last 18 months, being able to get out into patients' homes and has been limited in a way because of COVID. So we've used the 360 imagery to build a house. So within that house, we've taken the images of each room that you can walk through. You can look around each room, you can see what's in there. And then you can use that information to write reports and recommendations based on a patient that could be going into that home. So we could look at falls risks, we can look at access visits, what equipment's needed to support that patient at home. So essentially, it enables us to create these learning opportunities to support our students to achieve their competencies and a broader exposure of scenarios while on placement with us.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. And I can only add that from my own experience, seeing the ability that it gives to add resilience and test out when things go wrong or things don't go to plan, but no one comes to harm because it's a safe environment to do it in, is adding real value to that practice-based learning. So thank you for sharing that with us. So Helen, you mentioned in your introduction that you have moved away from the NHS and are working in an advisory different role now in this space. I wonder if you could share a bit more about that and what you think the career opportunities are for anybody wanting to explore following you down the rabbit hole into the digital world.
Yeah, sure. So like you, and I guess I never imagined when I started out as a physiotherapist that this might be the journey that my career took. And actually, I've kind of simply followed what was happening within our health service, really. And I guess never before have we seen this level of partnership with industry to support our health system. And of course, that has been in digital health as a result of the pandemic. We've needed those digital solutions to really transform the way that our health service is evolving. And of course, with that brings opportunities to take different roles within that and to ensure the success of those partnerships. But I guess what I've really noticed and what I've seen is that where these partnerships between our health service and industry work really well is when the digital solution is fully embedded within the patient pathway. Rather than becoming an addition or a bolt-on, that it actually enables redesign and transformation of that pathway. And of course, we've seen a lot of that during the pandemic. And what this needs is really close relationship with clinicians that have been there on the front line, delivering that care and are fully aware of the experience of patients. And so that expertise that as clinicians we can bring to understanding how those digital solutions are going to really have an impact for patients and the patient's experience ultimately is huge. And that might be within the system, that might be within the NHS, or that might be in a industry partner who is supporting the NHS in some way. And I'm biased, but I think AHPs have fantastic skill sets here because we are very problem focused. So we take time to really seek to understand the problem, and we're very focused on the pain points for patients. And we take time to really put ourselves, as Mel said, in their shoes. And I think when you bring those two things together with an industry partner who is really passionate about solving that problem, that's where the kind of magic happens. And for me, that was why I took that sort of step outside of healthcare into industry to work as a clinical lead to support their endeavours. But that may take many routes, of course, Carrie, because you might have a new IT system coming into a health service and that needs expertise from a physio or an OT or a speech and language therapist to really ensure that meets the needs of the pathway. It might be a software tool, something like some AI that's going to speed up or diagnosis or treatment. Again, you can see the clinical expertise is just going to be hugely valuable there. And of course, just making sure that we're keeping the patient at the heart of the endeavour.
Brilliant. I think from hearing you speak and from some of the other things that have been said today, I don't feel concerned that technology is going to take over our roles. That this is good. This is about harnessing technology and using the intelligence and the compassion and the human skills of frontline clinicians and work together in that space to deliver excellent care, which is really important, I think. This is an enabler for us. It's not going to replace us in this space. I don't see anyone worried. No one's giving me any worried looks that we need to be concerned on that.
No, Carrie, I mean, I think I've said it before, but in my lifetime, certainly I can't see technology replacing physiotherapists or other AHPs. but a technology-enabled physiotherapist will absolutely replace one who is not. So we need to get on to that technology and use it to make us better clinicians, to get better outcomes for our patients. It's an absolute essential enabler, but not a replacement for us. We need the people to make sense of the technology.
So I think that's really important. And I was going to ask you, one of my questions was going to be, do you still feel like a physio? But you kind of answered that. And I like that idea of being a technology enabled or an enhanced physio in that respect. I've almost got like Transformer vision in my head. There's a new outfit. I can feel it coming, people. But I think that's really important. So what I want to know then is, what do you think your next step is? You are our pioneers. You've gone out. You're in this new land of discovery and working in tech. Where's the future? Where will this go for yourselves or other people coming through?
I'll start with that one, Carrie. The last 3 jobs I've had didn't exist before I came into them. So my next job probably doesn't exist yet. And I'm all right with that, do you know? Because the technology, the digital world moves really quickly. So I don't know what the next steps are. When I started my career as a band 5 physio, then I was going to be a band 6, then I was going to be a band 7, then I was going to be a band 8, a very linear kind of career path. And quite quickly I saw that there were other things out there that I might want to try and have a wee experience of. And that's what I plan to do for the rest of my career, is just see what opportunities are there, jump in head first, roll with them and see where it takes me. Do you know, I think the time of that very linear career in physiotherapy and all AHPs is probably over. And I think that speaks volumes for the quality of people coming into our profession now, is that they come in with so many skills. So yeah, they come in with the problem-solving skills, with the analytical skills, with the evaluation of movement or process or pathway. We're inquisitive, we're clinical appraisers, you know, we've all those skills as a physiotherapist. But then I also love the technology and I love sport, you know, and that brings with it additional skill sets. And you might be a coder, or you might be interested in AI or virtual reality, or you might be, you know, you might be interested in building things, kind of an engineering side of things. All those bring in additional skills that grow our profession because they bring us other opportunities. So I would always say, don't just come in thinking I'm just going to be a physiotherapist, because I've never met anybody yet in 11 and a bit years of my career who's just a physiotherapist. They're always a physio with a little bit extra on top that makes them different from everybody else. So that would be my suggestion, is to embrace the little bits on the outside of your physiotherapy career that make you even better as a physiotherapist, and take the opportunities when they come for them.
So in my head, I've got this picture of you as a physio at the core, but actually you find your exploration at the boundaries, at the verges, and that's the exciting piece. But where that leads you will depend on your values, your hobbies, your interests, your intrigue. Brilliant. Thank you, Ewan. That's really helpful. Mel, what's your top tips for people that might want to go out and branch into digital or other areas to develop?
I'd say explore your curiosity, and put your hand up, your virtual or your real one up, and say, I can do that. I can do that for you. Because what physios, and I believe that the entire AHP workforce bring, is a set of transferable skills that actually make them really, really great leaders. So actually we need to step up to that, I hate using the sort of hierarchical term of sort of senior positions, but if we're having conversations at the sort of higher tables as such, then you're representative of what you think the talent amongst your workforce pool really is. I've done that. I've sort of stuck my hand up and said, I can do that. And it's taken me on a really exciting path. I'm about to embark on the Digital Academy, which is the 4th cohort of a group of leaders that is becoming a swell, almost a movement of people that think at system level and think about change. They think about the tech. So I think technology is, as Ewan and the others have said, is an adjunct. It's another tool in our armory. But if we don't apply the technology in the right way to the right problems for the right people, and make sure it is fully inclusive of society to the broadest representation of society, then we really aren't doing a good enough job. So I think that my portfolio career, as I would describe it, is the future for allied health professions. The 5, 6, 7, 8, then what? It's not for me. It's those detours that you take. So I would say be curious and be confident, and go forward and lead.
Brilliant, thank you. And I take your image of put your hand up, real or virtual, because so much of this is now in the virtual land, but you can still be visible and raise your hand, can't you, and take those opportunities. Dan, over to you for your top tips. What would you like to share?
Well, I think it's echoing some of the comments previously. It's around the openness to explore different routes. That career progression of clinical specialist or management is absolutely works perfectly for some, but it doesn't fit all. And it's having that openness to explore those different avenues, those different options. And it's scenarios like this that demonstrate where we can take those skills, and opens up the doors, the avenues, and it kind of opens the eyes for everybody to see where we can go with our skill set. So I think it's really kind of thinking about developing on where you want to be working, but looking outside the box a little bit about different avenues to develop your career.
Right, so I've got another image now. I've got a career cocktail. You put whatever ingredients you want in your cocktail shaker and shake it up, but that will be unique to you, and what you want to do. So it'll have some clinical in there for sure, because that's where we start from as your base ingredient, but may have some education, may have some tech, may have some leadership, may have some innovation, transformation. Helen, what else have you got to put in the cocktail shaker for us?
Oh gosh, I think everyone's covered a lot of exactly how I feel too. But I guess the only other thing I would add would be maybe don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone or take a path that others maybe haven't trodden before. Just because it's not widely seen, it doesn't mean it might not work for you. So I would urge people to go out of their comfort zone. Certainly that's something that I had to do. And it actually brings the best rewards, because you learn so much about yourself and you connect so much more about your purpose, rather than, as Mal described, just taking yourself down a linear career journey. You really sort of start asking yourself, what is it that motivates me? And part of being out of your comfort zone is really extending your network and having a kind of group of people that are going to champion those next steps for you. And that's a kind of professional network, I guess, because I guess your family and friends generally will. But it's like you said, Carrie, it's finding your tribe, whether that's, on Twitter or whether that's physically, but finding people that that you can bounce ideas off with, and just really that are going to support you when you make decisions where the outcome's slightly uncertain. I think that's the only thing I would add.
Brilliant. Thank you, Helen. And I can see from the chat box, you've put some suggestions in around, there's a range of fellowships. So they tend to be developmental training opportunities. So there's the Top Hole Fellows. There's other digital fellowships that are out there at a regional level as well, that often, and through the kind of technology enhanced care and simulation route as well, there can be fellowships. There's the digital academy. That's the word, wasn't it, Mel, that you said? So the Digital Academy, there's all sorts of different places now that are, again, they're just kind of opening up their doors and sharing opportunities for people. Is there any other places or sites that you think people could visit or go to if they're looking for further signposting from our session today?
Yeah, I put something in the chat, Carrie. It's on the CSP website. That's the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. It's a professional body for physios across the UK. And we have a special interest group, if you like, called the Digital and Informatics Physiotherapy Group. And just exactly what Helen was saying, it's a group of like-minded folk who are there to challenge each other, support each other, help each other out, to cheerlead for each other as well, because, it's not all smooth sailing. There will be bumps in the road. So when you need a pick-up and a help out, then there's like-minded folk there to do that for you. So it's just a group of like-minded folk brought together to share experiences, opportunities, challenges, solutions, and we love to welcome student members. So if you're just about to embark on a student physiotherapist course, or you're already involved in it, or if you're already working as a physiotherapist, by all means come in and join in. There's no time commitment, there's no financial commitment. It's just like-minded folks sharing good stuff. So check out the website there, and there's loads of stuff there if you want to join, or just resources if you want to learn a bit more about digital. There's masses of stuff. Digital is such a broad topic, so go in and just have a wee explore. Just learn, you know. I think if you're interested in being an AHP, you know, then you have a passion for learning. So I think get out there, open your eyes to things that you maybe don't even know existed yet, and you'll find the bit that really lights your fire, and then go with that bit. You know, so keep learning. I think that's the other bit I would say is if we stretch the cocktail analogy, don't always stick with the same cocktail.
It's always good
stuff.
to mix your drinks.
Here's you with life lessons: mix and drink and binge drinking. Don't do that, but try different stuff.
Carrie,
thank you, Ewan. Go on, Mel. Did you want to add something?
I'm just going to say, there's so many opportunities out there, but please don't be sort of intimidated by them. Don't think they're just for people or for perhaps other medical professionals. The attendees and the successful applicants to programs such as the Digital Academy and the Topple Fellowship, there's AHPs sitting in those seats right now. So follow them, see what they're doing. Don't be intimidated. It's not a club. You haven't got to, serve a certain amount of time. You've just got to be curious, motivated, and willing. So yeah, don't just go for it. And please reach out to us. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of us all.
Well, I was going to say, I think everybody here on this panel and wider, when you're in these spaces, you're happy to share back. And that's how we continue to grow that network and that community that can deliver in this space. So the future is digital. There's no doubt about it. So we need to ensure we've got staff with the confidence, the competence, the capabilities, and the innovation and the desire to disrupt what happens now. So I always think, it's okay to say we're going to stop doing something if you're going to replace it with something better. Well, let's use our tools, and digital is part of that toolkit, isn't it, to enable us to provide excellent patient care. Thank you so much for your time this morning, everybody. Ewan mentioned the CSP website in terms of the digital groups. I know that the other professional bodies will have similar special interest groups, community of practices, networks, so you can check them out. And again, they are available for student members as well as registered healthcare professions. So thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been fantastic. I could spend hours talking about this. So we might have to do a follow-up session one day, guys. Thank you very much. George, back to you.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you all for taking on that. That was absolutely fantastic. It's great to see, looking forward to the future, how you can see that going. And as you said about people pushing the comfort zones, for everybody attending today, obviously it's perhaps not quite as daunting as doing it in face-to-face. Hopefully we'll be back to that in the not too distant future, but even making the effort to come today, it shows a real commitment and a drive, and hopefully in the future we're going to see that coming through into the allied health professions. So that was fantastic. So thank you very much for speaking, everybody. Hopefully we won't be doing too much of mixing cocktails in the lunch break. It's perhaps a little bit early on a Friday afternoon for that.